Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. This happened to me just last night, and I can't stop thinking about it. I'm 19 years old, living in the Portuguese countryside with my mom. She's a surgeon, and about once a week, she has 24-hour shifts where she can't come home unless granted a brief exception. Our house has a small garden in the backyard where my mom grows flowers, and that's where our dog stays. Because of the house's layout, to get to the backyard, you need to pass through a small open-air section to the left of the main entrance, unlock a small gate, and walk a few meters before the yard appears to your left. In the front yard, which is much larger, we have lots of trees, flowers, and plants that my mom tends to in her free time. Near one of the 2-meter-tall fences to the right of the home's entrance, there's a wooden table and benches firmly planted in the ground. I occasionally go there to relax and sometimes smoke. Last Wednesday, my mom was at the hospital, and I'd been home all day. Since university is over for the year, I mostly played video games, took the dog for a short walk, and did other minor tasks. At around 11 p.m., I heard my dog barking like crazy. My bedroom window overlooks the backyard, about 5 feet below, so I decided to check. I thought maybe a stray dog had wandered in again. It's happened before. Peeking out, I saw my dog running from right to left, barking at the small gate leading to the passage. To her left were only stone walls, some plants, and our barbecue area. I called out, but she ignored me. Thinking it wasn't a big deal, I grabbed my hoodie and some dog treats, turned on the outdoor lights, and headed outside with my phone flashlight. The dog was still at the gate, barking furiously. When I approached with the treats, she growled, as if demanding I open the gate. Ignoring the snacks, she bolted past me the moment I unlocked it, rushing toward the home's entrance. She barked louder than I'd ever heard, staring at the wooden table near the fence. I shined my flashlight in that direction and froze. There was a man, seemingly in his late 40s, slightly hunched and looking drunk, messing with the fence. He grunted and called out, "Come closer. I want to show you something." Panic set in as I realized this man was trying to get into my home. "I'll let the dog loose and call the cops right now if you don't leave," I shouted, trying to scare him off and alert any neighbors. Unfazed, the man started climbing the fence. I released the dog and ran inside to grab a kitchen knife while dialing 112, the Portuguese version of 911. From outside, I heard my dog growling and the man screaming. When I returned, the man was scrambling to climb back over the fence, my dog snapping at him. She had apparently bitten him once already and was going for another. The operator picked up as I described the situation, trembling with adrenaline. Eventually, the man escaped into the field beyond our property. My dog growled at the spot for a while, ensuring he was gone. She then came back to me, dropping a torn, bloody piece of the man's clothing at my feet. "Good girl," I whispered, still shaking. The police arrived shortly after, and I told them everything. While I couldn't give a detailed description of the man, they collected the torn clothing and some fingerprints. They assured me that, given how recent the event was, he'd likely be caught soon. By Thursday afternoon, I got a call saying the man had been found passed out drunk just a block away. He's now in police custody, and I hope he stays there for a long time. One last eerie detail: the man had a pack of cigarettes with him, the same brand I'd lost the day before. Not only had he tried to break in, drunk and potentially dangerous, but he'd also stolen my cigarettes. What a fool. This happened almost 4 years ago, in 2015. I was a 25-year-old woman at the time and had just had my son. My now husband, then fiancé, and I had just moved into a cute lake house in Reed City, Michigan. The house was 3 stories, with a basement, a main floor with a bedroom, kitchen, living room, dining room, bathroom, and laundry, and a 3rd floor with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom between them. The house was in a private association with 2 lakes, out in the middle of nowhere. It seemed perfect, at first. We were renting from a family friend of my husband's, but when we arrived, the house was in horrible shape. The owner had been a hoarder, and there was barely any room to move around. One of the creepiest parts of the house was upstairs. The owner had been a foster mom, and one of the children she cared for, a little boy with disabilities, had passed away years before. Upstairs, there were multiple hospital beds that she insisted we keep. We, of course, refused. There was also a closet at the bottom of the stairs without a door. The inside walls were covered with pictures of children doing crafts, playing, and camping. Though nothing about the photos seemed illegal, it was unnerving, and we covered the closet up with boxes. The landlady mentioned that strange things had happened in the house that made her think her late son was still there in spirit. It had been his favorite place in the world. My husband and I just laughed it off, excited to have our own place. At first, we didn't feel anything unusual about the house, so we didn't think much of her stories. About a month after we moved in, my husband surprised me with a dog, a golden lab and pit bull mix, named Zeus. I was thrilled because he worked second shift and wouldn't get home until almost midnight, leaving me alone with just my cat for company. At first, Zeus was sweet, but that quickly changed. Outside, he was fine, but the moment he came inside, his demeanor shifted. He would growl, but it was like he wasn't looking at me, almost as if he was staring behind me. He would stand in the hallway leading to the kitchen with his hair raised, barking and growling at the front door. I would check, but there was never anything there. Sometimes, he would do this all day long. It was exhausting and unnerving. He also refused to go upstairs, acting completely terrified of it. Our bedroom was downstairs, but I decided to make one of the upstairs rooms a nursery. One room became the nursery, while the other was a guest room for visiting family. A month before my son was born, my best friend moved in after breaking up with her boyfriend. I set her up in the nursery, as I wanted to keep the guest room open for my parents. About 2 weeks later, she asked me why I kept going into the guest room at night. She also asked if I could be quieter, because she was pregnant too and needed sleep. I was confused because I hadn't gone upstairs since helping her move in. She explained that every night, after it got quiet downstairs, she would hear the guest room door open, followed by footsteps across the hallway. The steps would stop outside her door, linger for a moment, then turn around and return to the guest room. This freaked me out. My sister, who visited often, said she felt paralyzed with fear whenever she was upstairs alone. She didn't see or hear anything but was overwhelmed by terror. On the stairs, written in crayon, was the name of the boy who had passed. The first time she noticed it, it was in green crayon. Later, it was pink. One day, after my son was born, I put him down for a nap and went to check the mail. When I returned, the front door was locked. The doors didn't lock on their own. Panicking, I ran to the back door, but it was stuck. I had to force it open, breaking the knob in the process. The most terrifying event happened about a month later. My husband was at work, and I was alone with my son around 11 p.m. I had just fed him and put him back to sleep. While watching a movie, I suddenly heard heavy footsteps upstairs, like a grown man stomping around in boots. Recently, there had been break-ins in the area, so I immediately thought someone had broken into the house. Living in the middle of nowhere, I knew it would take the police nearly an hour to get to us. Determined to protect my baby, I grabbed my husband's shotgun, locked my bedroom door, and went upstairs, with Zeus pacing nervously behind me. I cleared the nursery, the bathroom, and the guest room. All the lights were on, and every door was open, but no one was there. Then I heard noises from the basement. Confused, I checked downstairs, but again, no one was there. As I returned upstairs, I heard the footsteps again, this time back on the top floor. For the next hour, I chased the sound back and forth, clearing every floor of the house multiple times. Eventually, I shouted, "You're so funny." Now leave us alone." After that, the noise stopped. I stayed in my locked bedroom until my husband got home. We moved out a month later. To this day, whenever we drive past that house, I feel like someone, or something, is watching me, and I get goosebumps all over my body. A few years ago, when my best friend and I were seniors in high school, we took a weekend trip to visit my grandmother a couple of hours away in Georgia. Our town was relatively small but one of the bigger ones in the area, so the drive took us through tiny, rural towns surrounded by cornfields and cotton fields. These areas had little to no cell service, unmarked roads, and long stretches of emptiness. On our way back home, we had to stop at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. The attached convenience store looked deserted, with only a couple of snacks inside, and there were no other cars or people around. I didn't want to leave my friend, who was a small, 100-pound girl, alone in the car, so I stayed outside to pump the gas. As I started pumping, another car pulled up on the opposite side of the pump. My gut instinct told me to stay alert. A thin man in his late 50s got out of the car. He fiddled with the pump on his side for a few seconds, but then walked around to my side, maneuvering past my open car door to stand uncomfortably close, within a foot of me. "Can I pump your gas for you?" he asked. I immediately positioned myself between the car door and him, ready to shut the door if necessary to protect my friend. The pump nozzle was locked, so I didn't have to hold it while it was working. I calmly said, "No, thank you." The man looked me up and down, smirking. "Pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone. You don't need to be doing this by yourself. Let me help you, baby," he said. He reached out and covered my hand with his as he tried to grab the gas pump. I jerked my hand back, slammed the car door shut, and stood my ground. My polite demeanor faded as alarm bells went off in my head. I remembered reading online that it's better to be assertive and safe than polite and vulnerable in uncomfortable situations. I looked him in the eye and said firmly, "Sir, get away from me. I'm pumping my own gas, and I've already said no, thank you. Leave us alone." He didn't move. His smirk disappeared, and he raised his chin, making direct eye contact with me. I decided I had enough gas to get out of there, so I maintained eye contact as I pulled the nozzle out, threw it back into the pump, and got into the car. As I drove off, I glanced in the rearview mirror. His car wasn't even being filled with gas. He had no reason to be there other than to approach me. My friend was shaken the entire way home, saying she probably would have let the man pump the gas for her. I told her I was just glad I trusted my instincts and had the confidence to respond firmly. That small piece of advice I'd read online about being assertive might have saved us from a much worse situation. I was at my friend's house, who I'll call Nick. His house is in the woods, with no fence separating his property from them. We started off normally, playing video games, knee hockey, and messing around in his backyard. While playing soccer, a rock came flying out of the woods and barely missed Nick's face. He didn't see it, so I told him, but of course, he didn't believe me. We weren't the type to hide inside when something like this happened, so we stayed outside and continued playing. A few minutes later, another rock came flying out. This time, it hit Nick directly. Furious, he stormed toward where we thought the rock came from. It was getting dark, so we couldn't see into the woods very well. Suddenly, another rock hurled out and hit me in the face, just an inch away from my eye. Neither of us saw where it came from, but we rushed into the woods, trying to catch whoever, or whatever, it was. We stopped when Nick tripped over a rock. Frustrated and shaken, we decided to head back to his house. We settled in to watch a movie on Netflix in the basement when a rock the size of a baseball crashed through the basement window. This time, we ran outside armed with BB guns, though they weren't likely to help much. Nick handed me a flashlight, and I knew what he wanted me to do. I turned it on and pointed it at the woods. In the beam of light, I swear I saw a dark figure running into the trees. Nick fired his BB gun, but we were sure he missed. Still acting like dumb teenagers, we didn't call the police. Instead, we hid in a bush next to his house, waiting for the man to come back. After what felt like 20 minutes, we saw someone emerge from the woods. I shined the flashlight on him, revealing a man dressed in baggy clothes, easily over 6 feet tall. Nick fired twice, hitting him both times. The man winced in pain, fell to the ground, then immediately got up and sprinted back into the woods. This time, we didn't chase after him. We knew he wouldn't be coming back. This happened last night at 1 in the morning. I'm currently on holiday with my family in the southwest of England. We rented a house for the week in the middle of a forest, quite literally, in the middle of nowhere. I'm not from England, I'm from a much colder place. This will be important later. It all started 3 days ago when we first arrived. It was late at night, around 2, and I couldn't sleep because it was far too warm for me. I just lay there in bed, trying to cool down. That's when I heard the noises. In the distance, there was a faint screaming, not a high-pitched, woman-like scream, but not a man's scream either. It was a lower tone, hard to describe, like something in between. I tried to convince myself it was just a deer, maybe a muntjac barking, but a small part of me wasn't convinced. Then, the motion sensor light outside started going on and off repeatedly for hours. I told myself it must be moths triggering it, until I heard faint footsteps. That's when my unease turned into full-blown fear. I passed out sometime after that, from sheer exhaustion. 2 nights ago, nothing happened. I was relieved and thought maybe the first night was just my imagination. But last night was different. It started around 1 a.m. I remember because I had been talking to friends on Snapchat. The screeching began again, slowly growing louder and closer. It sounded like it was about 50 yards from the house. The scream was unnatural, somewhere between a man and a woman, but with a darker, chilling undertone. Then, the screaming suddenly stopped. I heard footsteps crunching along the gravel outside the house. I was too terrified to open the curtains fully, but I caught a flash of movement through the small gap between them. Whatever it was out there. I didn't sleep at all that night. How could I? What I don't understand is how my parents didn't hear it. They told me they had been asleep since 11 p.m. and never heard a thing. However, my sister heard the same sounds I did. This morning, we tried to find a reasonable explanation. We looked up deer barking and other native animals, but nothing matched the sound we heard. It wasn't an animal, it was inhuman and terrifying. If it comes back, I'll try to find out what it is and let you know what I discover. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.